Thank you for this nice and warm introduction. And yes, today we are going to talk about the pillars of peace and democracy. So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, actually, it's an honor and a privilege to address you today. This gathering stands as a statement to our collective commitment to advancing development, peace across the globe. Because in a world that is currently defined by inequality, by conflict, our mission here today is not only to discuss and to debate, it's more than that. It's to forge pathways towards a more harmonious and prosperous world. Development, democracy, peace. These are the very pillars of the human dignity. They are the dreams of a child in a refugee camp, the whispered prayers of a dissident in a prison cell, or the voices of workers that demand fair wages. But make no mistakes, these pillars are crumbling. We can see it in the States, we can see it here in Europe, we have seen it for the last couple of years, decades, in Middle East and Africa. And if they fall, they will crush the dreams of billions underweight. While I was doing my research for this topic, I have found an interesting paperwork written by the Institute of Economics and Peace, which I would like to share with you. So basically, we will explore today the foundational principles of peace outlined by the research, and will integrate with some data from the Global Peace Index 2024, because actually I'm a data girl. I like facts and I like numbers. So I will show you today facts and numbers about what's happening in the world. As we will further see, peace is not only about the absence of conflict. It's more than that. It's a holistic state of well-being. It's about societal harmony, it's about economic stability, it's about political integrity. And the pillars of peace framework, as it is shown by this research, is built on 8 key factors that we are going to devolve in the following. So basically, as the Chairman Ivanic said, first of all, we need to have a full functioning government, because you cannot have a democracy without development. And in order to have development, you have to have a well-functioning government that is able to provide healthcare, education, institution, democratic processes within the country. After that, you need to have a stable business environment, because if you don't have money, you'll have an increased poverty. If you don't give a chance to the people, to the business sector to evolve, you'll have conflicts and you risk a riot because of the poverty. Also, you need to have equitable distribution of resources, because actually, peace is more likely to thrive in societies where resources are distributed equitably. And we can speak here about the idea that the Madam Deputy Minister in Greece had about giving education, healthcare, infrastructures in the country, and in this way the people shouldn't go outside of the country to look for it. And also we need to speak about acceptance of the rights of others, because a peaceful society means to accept everyone, the minority. We need to accept the women. We have to speak about minority rights, and we have to speak also about women's rights. And we have to promote inclusivity, because if we look at the Global Peace Index in 2024, we have countries like Canada and Norway that are strong in human rights records, and actually that continue to enjoy high levels of peace because of that. And you have to have a good relationship with your neighbors, because if this is not going to be the case. You are going to affect not only your country, not only your neighbor's country, but more the national and the regional stability. We have 3 points more to go because we need a free flow of information. We need press liberty. We need access to what the government is doing because like this we are going to have transparencies, and the voters, they are going to be able to know who they vote and on what are the bases on which they vote. The high levels of human capital. We all want to have educated people. And some of the countries, like Japan and South Korea, they have lower levels of violence and higher overall peace scores due to that. And the last but not least, you need to have a low level of corruption. Because when you have a corrupted government, you will not have trust in the institution. And when you don't trust the institution, then you do not trust the country. You do not trust the government that is going to provide what you need. So this Global Peace Index provides valuable insight into the current state of global peace. We have some regions that have significant strides. But on the other hand, we have Iceland that remains the most peaceful country, and we have Yemen that in 2024 has dropped down with 24%, and it's on the last place as the least peaceful country. And the report also reveals a big issue for us as a humanity, the climate change, because right now is increasingly recognized as a significant threat to global peace. Environmental degradation, resources scarcity can exacerbate conflicts actually. As you can see it in all the vulnerable regions like Africa and Middle East. And we have to speak about the elephant in the room. We in Europe, but also in the States, we have seen this political polarization and also the rise of autocratic leaders. These trends threaten democratic norms that can lead to increased civil unrest and violence. So we have examples where the freedom of speech in Europe is affected, like in Hungary, where the Law and Justice Party in Poland experienced some political polarization and enacted some controversial rule of laws. But promoting democratic values and inclusive governance is essential for countering these threats and fostering long-term peace. And I told you that I'm a data girl. So basically right now I'm going to read to you some key facts from this report. The world has become less stable in the past 17 years with substantial increase in political instability, number of conflicts and deaths. And we have also an anomaly. The trends on the militarization domain reveal an interesting paradox. Although the conflict is much more common than 17 years ago, most countries have become less militarized. And almost 10% of the world population is either a refugee or has been internally displaced because of the violent conflict. What is more interesting to see is that in North America, and we have seen it 2 weeks ago, when the candidate Trump was attacked, North America recorded the largest regional deterioration in peacefulness, with both Canada and the US recording large fall in peacefulness. And this is due basically to the violent crime and perceptions of criminality. And right now in 2024, 100 countries are at least partially involved in some form of external conflict. In the past 5 years, so basically in the past 5 years, and from 2008 till now, from 59 countries, we reached the number of 100 countries that are involved. And I have to talk to you about the money. Because in a conflict, it's all about the money and the power. So, we have a global economic impact of violence. And in 2023, it was $19.1 trillion. We have Ukraine, Afghanistan, and North Korea that incurred the highest relative economic cost of violence. Basically, their GDP dropped with 68%, 53%, and 41%. And one example, one really clear example is Syria, that had 85% dropped in GDP from 2010 to 2020. So basically from 252 billions, they dropped to 8.9 billions. And what is interesting to see is actually that when you speak about expenditure, how much do you, how big are your expenses on keeping peace or having military equipment? Expenditure on peace building and peacekeeping was 49.6 billion in 2023. It's less than 1.6% of total military spending across the globe. I wanted you to have that because this Global Peace Index can serve as a valuable tool for assessing what's happening right now in the world. And if we reflect on that, it's clear that achieving peace, sustaining peace, it's all about a collective effort. Governments, business, civil society, individuals, they all have a role to play. We all have today here a role to play. It's about forging pathways. It's about cultural diplomacy. It's about business and economics. It's about entrepreneurship. It's about education. So, sustainable development cannot flourish in the absence of democratic governance. But democracy cannot thrive in a context of violence and instability. And peace cannot be achieved without justice. So, as we embark today together in this journey, let's engage after this speech in a meaningful dialogue, and also after all the session will be ended. Let's share our diverse perspective, and let's work together for our common goals. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your dedication, for your commitment. Thank you for all the speeches before, because I really feel that I have big shoes to fill in. And I'm pretty sure that together we can build a more peaceful future. But it should be always about communication and about common principles and about common decision for commitment. Because as I was talking with Chairman Ivanic in the break, it's about getting the big players on the same table and discussing what is needs to discuss. But we have to admit that right now the world is less peaceful than it was 20 years ago. Actually, it's at the point where the world is at the lowest point after World War II, and we need to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your inspiring and optimistic speech. I do believe that the audience will have some questions. Okay, we can start from the gentleman here.
Hello, my name is Jean-Marie Kouassi again, from the Ivory Coast, but living in the US. Going back to the 8 points about the peace index, and also the comment that you made about having the big player on the table, I would like to start with the UN, for example, with the Security Council, where we have 5 players, when in fact, when you look at the globe, the entire continent of Africa is not represented, and I believe also India is not represented. And so I'm just wondering if we are, as a globe, if we are really serious about the peace effort, And if the big players are really serious about maintaining and sustaining that peace, would it be fair to say that everything should really start with a new mindset and really rethink even the idea of a UN that is more inclusive? That's my question.
Thank you for the question. Actually, one of the key factors for having peace was about inclusivity, was about having everyone at the table. And when you see Africa, and when you see the stats of what is going to happen with the world in terms of population in the next 100 years, you will see actually that Africa is going to have an increase of 500 million people, while Europe is going to have a decrease, States is going to have a decrease, China is going to have a decrease, Russia is going to have a decrease. So if I would be one of those people that are sitting in UN, I would look at those numbers, because you cannot expect to have a thriving world, not a thriving society. You cannot expect to sustain the economy as it is if you don't include Africa at the table. So yes, I truly believe that Africa should have its own place there.
Thank you. Do you have another one? Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Hayat. My question is, how do you think we can promote peace and democracy with the diversity of concepts, religions, everything? Can we promote it by imposing one vision of US or UN or Security Council and forcing all countries to be the same? Without looking for this diversity in everything.
So basically,
in values, in religion, in even our lifestyle. There are high countries and there are very low countries who need the basic rights still. Yeah.
when you try to seek peace, it's all about diversity. You can have one option to have all the players at the table. And when you have the players at the table, when you have Asia, Africa, Middle East, Europe, US, you'll have the different cultural specifics of that region. And maybe you can do like one version, but I don't believe it, because each country, and I'm from Romania, I'm a Balkanic country, but also we have a strong specific as Latins, okay? So we are a mix of Balkanic blood and Latin blood. So something that can be adapted to Croatia is not going to be adapted to Romania. Always you have to keep in mind the cultural, the ethnicity, the religion, the customs, also the customs, because they are really important. If I'm thinking about origins, traditions, customs, they are the base of a society, okay? So when you speak about what my grandmother taught me, after that what my mother is teaching my daughter, it's about customs, it's about origins. And maybe someone that is not from my region is not going to understand that. That's why you need the big players, but also more players at the table, because when you have only 5 or 4 people that are holding the power, it's going to be easy for them, but difficult for the others.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Yes, we have one more in the back. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Fazil. I'm studying my master's in environmental studies. You mentioned about the problem of climate change and threatening the global peace. So I was just wondering what could be the global initiatives that could solve this problem of climate change, and how can the country from in an international level cooperate to solve this problem? Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a good question because actually we had a global initiative. And a couple of years ago, the big players decided not to be a part of it. Right now, as we can see, so basically you have parts of the continents that are being desertified. Okay, you don't have enough water. You don't have enough resources to live there. If I look in Romania, when I was a kid, we had in the winter like 1 meter snow. Right now, if it snows once in the winter, we are happy. So when we speak about climate change, I think it's also about how do we adapt to the region and what's happening there. Because I believe that if we are going to continue on this path, we are going to relocate people not because of conflict, but because of climate change, because it's not going to be sustainable to have those people living there. So when you speak about a global approach, yeah, you need to have the players at the table, but you need to discuss region by region, because what's happening in Europe is something. You have the south of Europe that really becomes really warm. You have the east of Europe that is starting to become warm, so maybe we have to adapt the agriculture part. When we are speaking about Africa, we have to see which area can be lived in the next 50 years or not. When you are speaking about US, you have to see how you have those large communities on the coastal lines, but in the middle of the US, you have acres and acres of land that are not home to anyone. So basically, it's about specifics all the way. But indeed, we are in a desperate need of change from climate point of view, because I'm not so fatalistic that this planet is not going to support us, but we can see it with our bare eyes that actually the weather is changing. The weather is changing for each of us. The weather is changing in Europe. The weather is changing in Africa, in US. And if we are going to continue on this path, this is not going to be okay, not for us, because we are going to live and it's going to be okay. But I'm not sure about our children and our grandchildren. And this is something that we need to further discuss.
Thank you so much. I think that's it, right?
Thank you.
No more questions. Thank you so much. That was really inspiring, and thank you so much for the insights.